What's up, y'all? This is Greatest Movie Reviews, and I'm back with another review. All right, so today, um, I finally decided that I was gonna watch and finish Gravity Falls. So, gotta give the backstory real quick. So, when Gravity Falls was airing back in the day, 2012 to 2016, right? My family would watch it around me, and by family I mean like my brothers and shit. Um, but I never really paid attention to Gravity Falls back then. It didn't really capture my attention, right? But over the years, I've been hearing a lot of really good things about Gravity Falls. I heard that the show was deep. I heard that the show was like, number one, I heard the show was very deep. Number two, I keep hearing about the villain, the final boss villain named Bill Cipher. I heard a lot about him, how he was like really powerful and stuff. And so those two things, over time, kind of intrigued me. And so I finally decided that I was gonna go and just watch Gravity Falls all the way through with zero nostalgia. So this is not a biased review. This is completely objective, okay? Time did not make this show grow fond on me. This is my actual objective opinion, all right? So, after hearing all the good things about Gravity Falls, I finally decided to go watch it. And so I started from episode 1, and I finished the last episode not that long ago. And so now, I'm not going to review every single episode. This review is just going to be reviewing the entire series all at once. I'm not going to, there's probably going to be some episodes I'm not even going to bring up. I'm just bringing up the entire series storyline style. All right, so I first started watching Gravity Falls, from episode 1, right? Hold on. And episode 1 starts out just establishing everything, establishing, Stan, Mabel, Dipper, and their usual routine that they do every episode. And, mainly, the main plot of the first episode is basically Mabel doing her usual thing, trying to get a boyfriend or something. And then some gnome, and it turns out like the boyfriend she was going after was like a bunch of gnomes stacked together, and the gnomes want Mabel to be his princess, and they chase after her, and Dipper has to save her. Stuff like that. So since I just ran down the first episode, I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna ruffle some feathers and probably be a little bit unpopular. I think a good chunk of Gravity Falls is actually quite mid. I know that's gonna ruffle some feathers, but the first time, with me watching, Gravity Falls all the way through, honestly, like season 1, all the way up to just right before the episode where Stan's brother is revealed, everything before the episode with that ghost lumberjack trying to get his revenge, everything before that to me, was honestly quite mid. And the reason I say that is because, so when I'm looking at Gravity Falls for the first time, right? Honestly, Gravity Falls, when I was starting the show, when I was just getting the feel for it, you know, my honest experience with this show is I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this show is okay, but I don't really see anything like special about it yet. This to me just looked like, okay, the whole premise is that, you know, they're in a spooky park, with ghosts and, all these spooky monsters, and they're trying to figure out the mystery of why, everything in Gravity Falls is so spooky. That's literally like the whole plot of the show. And, when I look at that and I take it at face value, I'm just like, bro, this is Scooby-Doo. This is Courage the Cowardly Dog. This is like, I've seen stuff like this before, and a lot of the things that they did in the early episodes of season 1 were just very average. It's just like stuff. They were just very, very average plots. Nothing that really blew me away. And there's nothing wrong with being mid. It's just that, because of what I was hearing about the show beforehand, yeah, it kind of like, I was kind of, basically, I'm watching the show just to see what all the buzz is, all the hype is about, basically. And I'm not really seeing it yet when I'm watching season 1. You know, Gideon, the short guy who sounds like Flapjack, I could tell that he was going to be a recurring villain after I first saw him, but I feel like his motivation for being a villain in the show is kind of dumb. Like, not saying that he's an all-around bad character or anything, I just feel like his motivation's just a little stupid. Like, you got rejected by Mabel. Okay, so why do you go from being obsessed with Mabel to trying to take over the entire park and just being like a stereotypical cartoon villain? How do you jump from I'm obsessed with a girl to I want to take over the world? There's like that's illogical, right? If your motivation is that you're just obsessed with Mabel, then you should just be trying to get Mabel. What's all this other evil cartoon shit about? Okay. But that's just something, that's just a little minor nitpick. Point is, most, Gravity Falls, was kind of mid for a little while. It was just like, they would just do like pretty normal plots, just, you know, Dipper, trying to get a girlfriend with Wendy. Speaking of which, I guess I should say my opinion on each of the characters. Dipper, I guess I kind of grow to like Dipper a little bit more by the end, but I don't know, honestly, like in the beginning, Dipper's like just kind of he's kind of a simp at the beginning. He just, I know that's kind of like a common thing that happens, in a lot of cartoons, of course, in regular show with Mordecai and Margaret, but with Dipper, it's just kind of like he wants to get with this girl and Wendy, and it's just like, look, it's fine if you want to get with a girl, but it's obvious that Wendy knew the entire time, that Dipper was into him. And knowing this, still gets a boyfriend, but still, still entertains the thought of Dipper. And I'm just like, bro, like, and that's kind of what just makes me think like just not have respect for Dipper as a person in the beginning. It's just like, you allow this girl to treat you like a second string player when you're supposed to be on the field, right? Personally, if that's me, bro, you're over here, you know, doing that shit. You just cut that shit off immediately, right? But Dipper, he learns that he learns later on, and that just becomes his character development, which is good, you know. But he should have just not even entertained Wendy from the jump. Just said, fuck this bitch. Anywho, point is, around the end of season 1, we see Bill Cipher show up a couple of times. And he's, he gets summoned by Gideon because, Gideon's a cartoon villain and he wants to, mess with the main characters and stuff like that. And, he summons Gideon so he could help sabotage, the main characters, Stan, and get the Mystery Shack and shit. And it's just like, I'm very intrigued by Bill Cipher, but, in those early episodes when he first appears, it's like, he's not really doing anything too crazy yet, he's just like, he hasn't really done anything crazy. He really doesn't like go off until the finale. I think we all know that. So, but yeah, just watch him, so season 1, kind of mid, finale of season 1, a little bit better, still kind of mid, early parts of season 2 gets a little bit more entertaining, but still kind of mid, right? So now I'm just going to start reviewing the climax of the show now. Yeah, I know, I jumped around fast. So, basically, right, after hanging out with these characters for a long time, right, we see that, Stan, he knows about, the mysteries of Gravity Falls, and he has, the other books that Dipper is looking for throughout the show, and he's trying to, use this book to concoct, to do something with this secret laboratory basement he has under the shack. And it's all very intriguing, right? I forgot to mention my opinion on Stan's character. So when I first see Stan, right, I kind of am expecting, because this is the older character in the group, that Stan is going to have a lot of wisdom. And, when they're going, and whenever Dipper and Mabel are going on adventures, that, Stan is going to be the one that's seen everything before, and he knows exactly how to get out of every single situation, right? You think that as the older character that Stan would have that kind of wisdom. He doesn't. He doesn't have any wisdom at all. He's not that kind of old man. He's not that kind of old character, right? And, when you see, the actual origins of Stan later in season 2, it kind of all makes sense. And then you kind of figure out, okay, this is why Stan acts the way he does. And it all makes sense. So that's good. That's a good character developing thing that they did in the series, right? So Stan always knew that, Gravity Falls was haunted. He knew, it was a spooky town and shit. So he's over here collecting books and shit. And so later in the season, the CIA and the American government try to arrest him. They think that Stan's a villain. They think he's a bad guy. They think that he's a murderer or something, that he killed somebody, the real Stan Pines or whatever, and they all just get really distrusting of him. Stan manages to shake off the police. He comes back, they all do the thing where, Mabel has to press the button and chooses to trust Stan, and then we get his brother, right? And the episode's super entertaining, and it's just like, that's when the intrigue of the series went way up, right? And then we get, the whole story of, who Stan actually is. We figure out his brother's name is Stanford and all that other stuff. They run through their whole origin story. It's all very touching stuff. They were twins. They went through thick and thin together. They always stood good by each other's side until right around the time of college, Stan fucked over his brother. His dad booted him out the house, so he had to struggle for the rest of their lives, They meet each other 10 years later. They fight. He pushes him into the freaking portal. And so Stan spends the rest of his life with a fake identity, pretending to be his brother and, conning people and to run his business. And so he can keep his brother's house while trying to get him back out of the portal, while his other brother goes adventuring through the multiverse and doing all kinds of cool shit. So it's all, it's all very cool, all, pretty awesome. And, yeah, the intrigue goes way up, and so, Stan's brother, decides to start living with, Mabel and Stan and all that, that's his house, so I guess he just started living in his own house again. He starts hanging out with Dipper. Dipper starts getting really smart. He wants to take him on as his apprentice. They go on really cool, radical adventures and stuff. The action got so much better in the later parts of season 2, right? And at this point, I'm just like, okay, now this is where, the hype, this is where the hype from the show came from. It's coming from like the climax of season 2, right? They reveal everything and it's super cool, right? The relationship with Stan and his twin, how they were so close together, but then they had a whole falling out, and they never really got to apologize to each other and make amends because they barely saw each other after that. It's all just pretty cool stuff. And yeah, and it all leads up to the final act of season 2, where, after, Dipper agrees to be taken on as Stanford's new apprentice. Mabel gets jealous because, she's threatened by Dipper's success. It happens sometimes. It's toxic, but hey, and so, she tries to pause time so that they never get older on some Peter Pan shit. And then the freaking time travel guy comes back. Did I even really talk about the time travel guy? It's not that important. He's important, but, I'm not going to talk about him too much in this video. The time travel guy comes back, and turns out he's possessed by Bill Cipher, and he tricks Mabel into giving him the crack that he needs to enter back into the into their universe and shit. So yeah, I was a little confused by the explanation because, Bill Cipher did enter their universe, twice before, but apparently, you know, all those other times he appeared before was only a projection of Bill Cipher. He wasn't actually fully there, at full power. He was just like restrained. And so this time when he came in Weird Mageddon, he was at full power, and then we get to see, what Bill Cipher is all about. And from what I can see from the havoc he wreaks in the climax of Gravity Falls, it seems to me that Bill Cipher's powers are basically like the fifth dimensional imp creatures from DC Nation, right? He's like Miss Mixie or Batmite. He's one of those characters where he can just warp reality, any way he likes. And they only have like a few very specific weaknesses. Like you got to trick him into saying their name backwards, or they have to enter into your mind and they get nerfed really badly. So Bill Cipher is one of those guys. So he can warp reality any way he wants, and he has very specific weaknesses that don't really make much sense. Like they made a force field that he couldn't break into because it was like made out of like pony hair. Why pony hair specifically? What's so special about it that makes it to where Bill Cipher can't break through it? It's stuff like that. And, there's just so much to talk about in this series. I'm probably gonna have to continue this in like a part 2. But, the general gist is, thought Gravity Falls was kind of mid for a while. The season 2 climax came up, boosted the series rating way up. I know this isn't that kind of channel, but do you think that Goku could beat Bill Cipher? Leave your comments below, because I feel like now that I've seen the show, that's like a really interesting debate.